Good evening. We'd like to welcome everyone to the Equipment School District Special Meeting, June 29th, 2020 at 6:00 p.m. At this time, we will, the meeting is called to order. Mr. Jefferson, would you do the invocation, please?
This evening, oh Heavenly Father, we come before you once again and give praise and honor and thanks to you, and just thank you for all your many blessings, for your grace and your mercy. And we ask you, oh Heavenly Father, that you will guide and lead us as we go into this meeting this afternoon to make the right decision for this district. We ask your grace, your blessing upon each and every one here at this time and each and every one who's watching. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. We stand for the pledge. Attention, salute, pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item number 2, adoption of the agenda. Is this where we add?
No, we'll use that when we make the motion.
I make a motion, we adopt the agenda.
Oh, okay, but I just wanted to add to executive personnel.
Okay.
Can we do that now or later?
After we get a second.
Yeah, you can change it now. You can do it when we get ready to close the meeting.
Okay, let's go ahead and
So it's already on there. We'll just add
to executive
personnel to
session.
executive session.
Executive session 11.2 personnel. It's just some questions I have on this. Okay, with that addition, can we get adoption of the agenda?
I make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Skidmore, second by Ms. Waltman, that we adopt the agenda with that addition to the executive session. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, consent agenda, and we will do this 3.1 through 3.24 in one motion. Can we get a motion for the consent agenda?
I make a motion, we accept the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Dr. Jefferson, second by Ms. Waltman, that we accept the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, presentations and requests to address the board. At this time, we will have our public hearing on the budget for the 2020-2021 school year. And will somebody tell them they can call in? All right, however you do it.
It was on the notice.
You got it, okay. All right, Ms. Johnson.
Okay. We're already there, right, guys? Okay. Good evening. My name is Lotus Johnson. I am the finance coordinator for the district. And tonight we're going to go through this legally required budget hearing, presenting our FY21 budget to the community. We will take questions at the end, which can be submitted right now through YouTube Live in the chat window, and answer those questions at the end of the presentation. Again, this public hearing is required by law, and you see the Mississippi Code section right there on your screen. This gives us an opportunity to present the district's educational plan in dollars and cents. So you see the money beside the plan for the district. When you ask your questions, either via YouTube live chat, or they can be emailed to me, which my email address will be at the end of the presentation. They can be emailed to me up through the end of the day, July 2nd. I ask that you keep those questions related to the FY21 budget only. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. So the district is comprised of 4 schools, along with a career and technical center, as well as an alternative program. Here, you'll see what our enrollment figures are as of month 9 from this FY20 school year, for a total of 1,734 students. Some general information about what you're about to see in this budget. A district school budget is comprised of many individual funds. You can look at each fund as a balancing set of accounts or to the common person, a checkbook. And so these will be separate checkbooks that we account for. And right now, the district operates about 56 active funds. So we'll go on into the revenues and explain that we have revenues that come from various sources. Local revenues such as ad valorem dollars paid by the taxpayers, interest earned at the bank, food sales in the cafeteria, and even athletic ticket sales will be considered a local revenue. Our state revenues come from the State Department by way of Mississippi Adequate Education Program. We get homestead exemptions, which is a state revenue, and then also education enhancement revenues that comes from sales taxes. We also get federal revenues. Most of those federal revenues come from the title grants, such as Title I, Title II, 4, 5. Also our special education, federal special education grants such as IDEA. Lastly, we have 16 section revenues that pour into the district, and those are the annual payments that are submitted from our leaseholders and can also come from timber sales. So for this FY21 budget, this is a pie chart that shows the breakdown of each revenue source and where it comes from. So we have about 42.55% that we're budgeting to come from state sources, 37.55% to come from local, 17.76% from federal, and 3.9% from 16 section. So in a comparison of the different revenue sources, ad valorem, you see there's projected to be an increase of approximately $404,000. We'll talk more about ad valorem on the upcoming slides. MAEP, you see a decrease of about $953,000. And we'll also talk more about MAEP, but this is the numbers that we're using right now are still an estimated figure, as we still have not received what our 21 allocation is going to be for FY21. The next major revenue source, federal programs, you'll see a slight decrease, but it's important to understand that the carry forward federal funds are not added to this budget yet. FY19 and FY20 federal grants, they still can be expended within the FY21 year. So those numbers will be added as we close out this year. So they'll be brought forward. Federal programs have 27 months to spend their funds, so they'll be added once FY20 is closed out. We're also slated to receive $685,000 in the elementary and secondary school emergency relief fund that's authorized by the CARES Act. That number is not included in these funds either. So you see that $201,000 decrease, but it'll increase as we progress over into FY21. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about ad valorem. So right now we have planned to ask for, from the Board of Supervisors, Clark County Board of Supervisors, $6,078,000 for operations and $293,000 for debt service. Right now, it's still a projection. It's not the final number that we will actually present to the Board of Supervisors. That number, final number, will be approved by this board in August and presented to the Board of Supervisors in August. So there's still numbers that can come in and change the amount that we're requesting, but for this evening's presentation, these are the numbers that we're asking for. Okay, so when we talk about ad valorem, it's important that we understand how these tax dollars are derived. So I'm going to give you a simple example using tens and hundreds and thousands to kind of bring it together. So a meal is 1/1000th of whatever property is being assessed here. So 1,000 in assessed valuation brings $1 of ad valorem tax revenue. So if there's a house that is appraised at $100,000 and a house being a single family real property, 10% of that 100,000 would be an assessed valuation of $10,000. That $10,000 would bring in $10 per levied meal for the school district. So in this case, there's 48.31 meals levied for the Quitman School District or on behalf of the Quitman School District. So that homeowner would pay $483.10 for the year in ad valorem taxes for the school district. So that's just a very simple kind of way that you can take your appraised value of your home, apply that 10% to get the assessed valuation, and then whatever the number of meals that are levied for the school district, that's how you can guesstimate or estimate the number of dollars that you would be paying towards the operations of the school district. Okay, so the two things that affect your ad valorem taxes is that which we've talked about, the assessed valuation, and also the number of meals levied. The assessed valuation for the Quitman School District, you can see here, compared from year to year, 2019 compared to 2020, the assessed valuation for the school district actually went up. It increased $16 million. So when you see assessed valuation go up, it can be because of reassessment, or it can be because new businesses have come into the city. So in this case, the county wasn't up for reassessment in this particular year, but they are in the upcoming year. So this is a plus for the entire city because we could possibly see increased assessed valuation because of reassessment and for new businesses coming into the city. So here, when you see that increase in assessed valuation, that means that it can bring in more dollars for the school district at the same amount of meals that was levied. And you'll see that in the next screen because that's exactly what happened. In 2019 and 2020, the same number of meals were levied for the school district's behalf, 48.31. However, the estimated amount per meal in 2019 was $123,192. Estimated amount for 2020 is $123,534. So those additional dollars would bring in, the assessed valuation would bring in additional dollars even at the same number of meals levied. So I hope that makes sense. If we had a decrease in valuation and the meals stayed the same, that means that we would bring in less dollars for the school district. Okay. So again, 2019 and 2020, the same number of meals were levied. However, it did yield more dollars for the school district. Okay. All right, we'll talk about what was requested versus collected in this current year. And you can see how the numbers fared in previous years, but specifically for FY20, we actually received $16,003.83 more than what we requested. However, I notated on the screen that it's a potential surplus because that's not the actual surplus. We actually broke even, and I say that because there are two different formulas in which you use to calculate surplus versus a shortfall. So this dollar amount is strictly looking at how much we requested from the county and how much we received. We were actually entitled to $5.844 million, which you'll see is more than what we asked for. So when you talk about if the district has to surplus or escrow any dollar amounts, we would compare that to the number that we were entitled to. So since we asked for less, because even when we asked for what we asked for in August, it's still an estimate up to the very last moment. But at this point in time, we see the complete picture and we go back and recalculate how much we could have asked for. And again, that number is compared to what we actually received. So that $16,000 is not going to be surplus or escrowed, if you want to say escrowed, and we didn't have a shortfall because of that $16,000 additional funds. So that's a plus for the district. Okay, so next we'll move on, and I'm sure we'll have questions related to ad valorem. So Shay is here to my right, making sure that she's looking at the questions that you all have typed in the chat window, and we will address those at the end. All right, we're going to move to our next source of revenue, which is MAEP. I have for you displayed what that MAEP formula is. ADA is average daily attendance. I've given the board members the actual formula that was used for Quitman School District, showing what that fully funded dollar amount is. But this is the formula that MDE uses. And out of all of the components in the formula, that ADA is going to be the most significant impact that we can actually have. And we'll talk about that on a few slides ahead. So MAEP right now, as it stands, again, has not been given to us. We don't know what we're going to receive in state funding, as the legislature has not passed the funding bill to date. But the number that I use for the purpose of this meeting is actually 20% less of what the fully funded dollar amount is. Such a high number because, you know, it's been a long time since we've been fully funded anyway. And we were given projections that what we were normally funded could be another 10 to 15% off of that number. So we were very conservative in what we used for MAEP, but hoping that the numbers, when they do come in, we will see that we can put a little bit more in the budget, that it will be a higher number or a lessened cut than what we budgeted for. If you look at the underfunded to date amount through FY20, the district has been short at $9.7 million since 2019 from an underfunding of MAEP. $9.7 million, okay? That's a number to just think about. That's the number that we were entitled to receive to educate the children of Quitman School District, but because the legislature fails to fully fund the formula that's in statute, this district has been shorted $9.7 million. Okay. So again, that number, the number one criteria or factor that we can impact is ADA in that MAEP formula. MDE uses the average of months 2 and 3 for us, months till we kind of communicate the school year by months, but that's October and November. October and November. So they use the average daily attendance, the average daily attendance of months October and November. And this is how we've compared from year to year. So from FY20, the number that was used in the formula was 65.96, less than the previous year. And this year it's 78.59 less than even this current year. It's important to understand that ADA is not enrollment. However, when enrollment decreases, the ADA will decrease. For example, we lost 33 students from the end of FY19 to the beginning of FY20. So that was 33 students lost, and then we lost another 10 from the beginning of FY20 to the end of FY20. So you can say a total of 43 students is counted in that 78.59 number, but the rest is for students that are currently enrolled and was currently enrolled in October and November of this year that just didn't come to school. So that can mean a lot of dollars for the district when students don't show up in October and November. We want students to show up every month, every day of the year, but especially in October and November, because that's the snapshot that they use to plug into the MAEP formula. It's unfortunate because October and November, aside from the COVID-19 crisis, we know that flu season, we have a lot of absences. It's increased in those months. So, but just a plug, just, send your students to school in October and November for sure, because that directly impacts that MAEP funding, kind of tongue twister. All right. Another factor in the formula is the base student cost. We don't have any control over the base student cost, but we do steadily see an increase to those numbers. So we're thankful that the base student cost increases, and that number comes from districts that are successful and efficient in their spending. So it's a handful of them. They have to be successful, and whatever criteria the MDE sets to consider them to be efficient and successful, that's where our base student cost figure comes in at. So that number continuously increases year to year. All right. So this brings us to the end of our revenue slides, and let's talk about how we plan to spend that revenue. Before we get into the numbers, it's important to understand who or the different ways the expenditures can be broken down. So we'll look at the function first, what the school finance people call the functions and the objects. So instruction is the first function, and the instruction includes salaries and benefits of teachers, teacher assistants, supplies, anything that is behind the closed classroom door would be considered an instructional function, okay? The next function would be support services. So this is the guidance counselors, the librarians, the principal's office, the maintenance, anything that supports the instruction of the schools. Okay, the next function would be non-instructional. So that's where you have your food service operations and parental involvement. So non-instructional functions. So we'll look how those are broken down by looking at the pie chart. So the total expenditures in the budget is $23,799,000. And you'll see that 43.21% is budgeted in the instructional function. Close behind is the support services at 35.52. And then you can see the other numbers divided between the 16 section, debt service facilities, and the non-instructional functions. Okay. All right, we'll compare those, the expended amounts or the budgeted expenditure amounts here in this comparison chart. So if you just fast forward to the bottom line, you'll see a steep increase of $4.132 million. And so I'll stop to kind of explain why such the drastic increase. In this budget, we have about $3.3 million budgeted in special projects. Special projects being $2.6 million allocated for the replacement of the HVAC system at the lower elementary. Also the addition of a new HVAC system in the gyms of the junior high and the high school. We also have about $647,000 budgeted for digital radios to be installed on the buses, roof repair at the high school, some air conditioning installed at 5 classrooms at the upper. We have planned to build a canopy at the lower elementary, and also purchase a plethora of technology for teachers, specifically the district, the technology department, as well as the principals and Dr. Holloway and his admin staff have been looking at the purchase of panels for teachers, so that not only they'll be more effective and efficient when the children are here in the classrooms, but also preparing or if we have to extend some additional distance learning as we had to this previous spring. So all of those things are put in the budget that is contributing towards that $4.132 million increase. We saved about $150,000 on personnel reductions and we did some cuts to the non-personnel budget allocations, but it's just such an increase in the cost of teaching and teaching children these days. I mean, we had about 790,000, or the net increase would be about 790,000 without these special projects, and which would be more in line of what we see previously. Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words. So let me say that again. Without these special projects, the increase would be closer to 790,000, which is closer in line to what we see from year to year, with the increased cost of salaries and benefits, and also just the technology upkeep and repair. So you'll see this number as we compare the different ways we're going to look at the expenditure functions. You'll see this number again. Okay. All right. So the next way we can look at our expenditure amount is what's being budgeted. So what's being budgeted could be salaries and benefits. It could be professional services. It could be supplies or equipment. So that's what we consider the object to be. So we're going to look at how the expenditures are seen per object. So 61.57% is budgeted by purchasing human resources, salaries and benefits, or personnel. That percentage usually is a little higher, between 70 and 80%, but because we have so much budgeted in equipment this year from those special projects, that piece of the pie is a little smaller. 15.91% is going towards that equipment cost. So you can see how the different other different areas of objects compare on the pie chart there in front of you. Okay, so let's actually look at the comparison of the numbers. You have your salaries and benefits, which is an increase of about 1%. We've had to budget it, or I'm sorry, we didn't budget because we weren't made aware that we were going to have an increase in the health costs this time last year. We weren't aware, but that increase came this past January 2020, and we have been notified there's going to be another increase come January 2021. So we were made aware in time to include that cost in the budget for FY21. So you'll see that 1% increase there, amongst other increases, because as you know, the teachers or certified staff have an increase in their salaries every year. So you can see there where we had increases, but the net increase was, we had decreases as well, but you'll see that the net change is 1%. Professional services has a deep increase, and the reason for that is because we did a lot of procedural changes. We've reclassified how we code certain things. So whereas things that we would have coded as supplies or other purchase services, we have them coded as professional services now. So that is part of the reason for the steep increase there. Another one I wanted to point out was the equipment. Again, that steep increase is because of all of the special projects that we have budgeted in this year's budget. Okay. All right, the next way we can look at expenditures is by location. All right, so you see a big piece of the pie to central office, but don't be alarmed because central office expenditures are distributed to the schools. The way we put money for centralized purchases for the district, it's coded to that central office because that may be where the administrator is that handles the purchasing for whatever is going to be distributed out to the schools. So you see that large piece of the pie there for that reason. But you'll see how it's distributed out to the schools in the next slides as we look at the per pupil allocation per school. All right. So here is the expenditure by location and also by major funding sources. So you have the MAEP supported funds, activity, federal programs, special education. So you can see those numbers there of how much of those revenue sources are going into each site. All right, and with a total of 1,734 students, that brings the per pupil allocation to the $13,725 per student. That includes all funds. And this is what the per pupil expenditure by location looks like. And just in line with other school districts, you're usually going to see a high per pupil amount on the elementary level, and then again on the high school level. So we're right in line there. Okay. And this is where the total of the central office expenditures and the career tech expenditures are folded into the 4 main schools. Okay. All right, just some staffing facts. We have 140.5 teacher positions, 40 assistant teachers, 30 bus drivers, 24 child nutrition staff, and about 19 building and departmental administrators. Okay. All right, in the law, there is a maximum amount, or it states a maximum amount that we can use on administrative salaries and benefits. So I always like to look at this number annually to make sure that we're not exceeding that dollar amount. So the current formula right now allows for $1.1 million to be spent on administrative salary benefits. So we're under that amount by $179,000. Okay. So now let's look at the general fund balance trend and where we plan to be at the end of this year and where we plan to be at the end of next year should we carry out all of the projects that, that is included in this budget. So you see a steep decrease, and Dr. Holloway and I have looked at that closely because that's not a fund balance that we want to end with at the end of FY21. So right now, I'm projecting that we end FY20, which is tomorrow, at $4.12 million, which is about 28% of the projected revenue that we would have brought in for FY20. But after all of the expenditures budgeted for FY21, if we carried out each one of those expenditures, it would leave us with that $1.437 million at the end of 21, which is only 10% of FY21's projected revenue. So again, we don't want that to be the case. That's going to be too low for our comfort, and I'm sure the board's comfort, because we need to have enough cushion there to handle unforeseen expenditures going in the future, that may come in the future. So this is a comparison of what the fund balance has been from year to year, and then also includes the 2 estimated numbers that I just mentioned. So we have already decided that the projects, the special projects that I just told you about in the expenditure slides, we're not going to be able to do those projects. It's something that I know that this district had been asking for, or the community and the students and teachers have been asking for. Certainly the gym, AC at the gyms at the junior high and the high school, and then also the much needed renovation, or I guess that's the right word, renovation of the HVAC at the QLE. But those are just some things that our budget is not going to be able to handle now unless we have a major donation to the district. So it's about $1,098,000 that was budgeted from MAEP, or I'm sorry, the general fund to go towards those special projects. And then along with the 953,000 decrease to be, right now to be to come in from MAEP, that's what's driving such a drastic decrease in the fund balance. So again, when we get our MAEP final allocation number, this number will go up. If I have budgeted so less than what they're actually going to give us, then the projected fund balance will increase because the revenue is going to increase. So right now, as it stands, we're not going to be able to do, there may be a few of those projects that we could squeeze in for this year, but with just so much unforeseen that is in our future, we're not going to be able to do those projects. I also failed to mention when we're going over the expenditures that we have quite a bit of money budgeted for PPE for, to safely come back to school in August, to provide PPE for students and for staff. So that's one of those unforeseen expenditures that we have cushion now. We have a sufficient fund balance now to be able to handle, but if we, like I said, continue to, if we plan to do what we wanted to do, what we had originally planned to do, then we're decreasing that cushion and we're just not comfortable with that. Okay. So that leads me into the next slide of debt, which are some projects that we have done in the past that we're still paying on. QSCAP bonds, we funded the QHS auditorium renovation, the QJH and QHS AC replacement. That amount that we still owe is at 1.5 million. We did a 3 mil note, which funded the science lab at the high school, did some renovation to the gym at Upper, and also some renovations to the high school football stadium. Then we had the certificates of participation loan that funded a heat pump replacement and also lighting retrofit. That's when the district was trying to conserve energy, so that was the loan for that. And then new this year, which we may be immediately paying back if we don't move forward with the new AC that I just mentioned at the junior high, the high school, and at QLE. But the board approved for us to use our own money, our own 16 section money. So now that's now debt on the district side that we would have to pay back over the course of 20 years should we continue on with that project. So that's the debt, how much we owe, and when each one of those debts mature. Okay. The board has a copy, electronic copy of the combined and the combining budget. You actually have a hard copy of the combined, that's the 3-page budget. So you all can look over that. If you have any questions pertaining to that, let me know. And this budget will be presented to the board for approval at their regularly scheduled meeting in July, which is July 13th at 6 p.m. So now this brings us to the live Q&A session. All right, Shay.
We only have one question.
Oh.
You actually answered it during the
During-
she said I meant her
She said,
question, yeah.
Okay.
And because she heard your answer.
Okay, well, what's the question? I'm just
Yeah, I was
curious
gonna say,
now.
She was wondering, have the special projects already been explained in detail, but then as you started talking
Gotcha.
about them?
Gotcha, okay, all right. Does the board have any questions for me?
I do.
Okay.
And the service that we use for cleaning,
GCA or ABM, they were.
right.
Bought it, okay.
Surely they're gonna have more employees. Is that rate going up? To what extent?
It will, we're waiting on the proposal.
Okay,
What they presented to Joseph handles that. And we are going to go with, they're going to have one employee at each school that will clean and disinfect all day. That's their sole role, is walk around wiping down water fountains, handrails, door handles. And when everybody's gone, they'll sanitize the classroom. So that's part of the cost that Ms. Johnson was talking about. It will go up. for one employee at each school.
Are they gonna also provide all the sanitizing products that we will use, or?
No, sir. No, sir. Already, Joseph, he and I met about that today. The only thing we have not purchased is sanitizer, which I've got a couple of vendors to talk to about hand sanitizer and masks for teachers and kids. We're gonna use some of the CARES money to purchase masks for teachers and kids. We've got bottles and we've got 10-gallon drums. We got a bunch of 10-gallon drums we're gonna get from a distributor. So teachers, when they spray their classrooms if they want to, they need a refill, they'll be able to fill it back up. So we've done that. We just haven't got hand sanitizers and masks for kids. That's from Cathead Distillery. So it's not vodka. We are purchasing disinfectant.
They may need to do another DBA or something.
But it's disinfectant
Definitely
spray
gonna
for
be pulled
teachers'
on the
classrooms.
One more question.
Okay.
Is 2 nurses adequate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Good question, with what we're gonna do on buses for temperature checks, and then teachers will have a temperature check. They told me not to call it a gun, or whatever it's called, Ms. McCormick.
The
They said-
infrared, the infrared touching.
They said don't call it a gun, but anyway,
No.
we'll do temperature checks before they get on the bus with an assistant who'll be on there, and the teachers will do them as well.
Okay.
So are the teacher assistants gonna ride the buses to do
Yes,
that?
ma'am.
Okay,
Yes,
so you wouldn't have to hire a new,
No, ma'am.
okay.
No, ma'am.
Would that add to their hours?
I just told Ms.
Okay.
Johnson, we gotta talk about that.
Okay,
You
okay.
can use some of the, I don't know if we'll be able to use it as supplies. I've got to call MDE to see if we can use any of the CARES funds to help take care of that, or if that's something the district is gonna have to pick up. So I don't know, but we definitely need that, somebody on the bus. And if they're, the elementary kids, we're not gonna send them back home. They'll have an isolation area where they can sit in that seat where the assistant can watch them. As soon as they get to school, the nurse will come out and get them, and we'll get them home.
Okay, I have a question on when you were talking about expenses and the, central office expenses were at 40% of the total, cost, but you said it was a coding thing, is that right?
Correct, So like, for instance, our curriculum department handles a lot of the curriculum purchases for the district. So it's a centralized purchasing area, so therefore, the codes they use end in 01, which means central office.
Ms. Tucker.
But everything is distributed out to the schools. So it's not like it's just 01's expenses, it's expenses that are coded to 01, but for the schools.
Would that be like the testing materials?
She does testing materials, she does textbooks,
Textbooks.
a lot of the curriculum software. So all of it's coded to the 01, but for access at the schools or either distribution to the schools. So that's why the percentage is so large. Now, some of the expenditures in there are truly central office expenditures. Transportation, all of transportation is coded to 01. All the maintenance is coded to 01. Technology is coded to 01. We do have some where he's set up to specifically technology budget for a certain site. So it'll be in their, it would show up at their school. But for the most part, it's handled on the 01. So it's more of, it's where the centralized purchasing is of the items and then distributed out to the school.
Okay. One other thing too. Let me see if I can get right back to it. In what you were considering as local income, I believe you had ticket sales,
Yes, athletic ticket sales.
athletic ticket sales.
Mhm.
Looking at, I believe that was in the range of $58,000 to $70,000. Can't find it here real quick.
So
So-
right
so-
here, 155,000 for FY '21, which was a $20,000 decrease from FY '20.
And that's gonna take a hit this year as well, is that? they're gonna have it.
That's the reason for the 20,000 decrease.
Okay. All right.
Kind of estimating that we won't make as much in ticket sales.
Got another question?
Okay, questions?
Coming
Live.
from YouTube.
Okay,
Okay,
Will it be possible to not overspend when it comes to offsetting the loss coming from the usage of the PPE by the staff and children every day?
Well, the budget that's set aside, and I don't remember the exact number, but it's not $1 million. You know, so it's not that big of a expenditure budgeted item that it's going to affect, or replace us doing a special project versus, you know, providing the PPE. That's a great question, but not on the district side. We have some funds budgeted here, but we're hoping to use a lot of the funds from the CARES, which that's not even in these numbers yet. I hope I answered that question correctly.
Sure.
Which section would the ad valorem be under? That's not, is it state, federal?
Local.
Ad valorem is local.
Local, that we
Yes.
consider local.
Local.
35%.
With the reappraisal, will that,
We don't know.
Okay.
You know, the
I mean, it was-
reappraisal may yield a decrease. It could, but if it yields an increase, then that means more dollars can come in at the same number of meals levied.
typically does reappraisal increase or decrease? Property's
I say
value?
It just depends.
yeah,
It depends on where you are, because it only happens once every 4 years.
And they're doing some waivers now.
They are.
They're doing all kinds of waivers for everything, yeah.
Yeah.
So
they're-
they could not, go ahead, I'll let you.
No, that's right. They're eligible. That's what I was gonna say, eligible for submitting some waivers because of COVID-19.
Not to have an
So we
increase?
don't know whether they will exercise those waivers and not do reappraisal this year and wait till the following
They
year.
did it this year.
They did do it.
Well, wasn't that in the,
I can't remember.
I got some.
Of the reappraisal? Okay, well, maybe they have.
I mean, I think it was in that newspaper. when we read
Okay,
it.
maybe they have done it, so we don't know, we don't yet know if it yielded an increase.
Okay. I don't know where I had that.
Ms.
Looked at it
Johnson,
last time.
Okay.
Under expenses,
Uh-huh.
instruction and support system, which one does central office and administrative costs fall under?
Support services. Yep, we support services. Instruction is gonna be behind the door, behind the classroom door, right? If there's no more questions, we'll, again, the budget will be presented for board approval at the July meeting. If there's any follow-up questions, please email me at ljohnson@qsdk12.org through end of day, July 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Okay, let me find the spot. Okay, numbers 5, oh, these might be. Numbers, we're down to number 7, financials. Approval 7.1, approval of claims number 53031 to number 53150. I had a chance to look at that. Can I get a motion?
I make a motion to accept.
Motion by Dr. Jefferson,
Second.
second by, is that
Sound
Mr.
like Mr.
Price?
Price.
Mr. Price, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries to approve the claims. 7.1, 7.2, and we would do that in one section, 7.2, 7.21 through 7.28. Can we get approval of financial statements ending May 31st, 2020?
I make a motion, we approve the financial statements 721 to 728.
Motion by Ms. Waldman,
Second.
second by Dr. Jefferson. Oh, I'm sorry, discussion, Mr. Jefferson. That's fine. That's a normal. thing.
No, yeah,
You already
this is
said
the
that's
normal
okay.
here.
It's just no discuss.
And a lot of it you've already heard, because the numbers that I presented there, in the public hearing, documents were through revenues and expenditures to date, like through last week. But, backtracking to the financials as of the end of May, just looking at your trend document and the fund balance trend, you'll see how we kind of used some of the fund balance this year. And projecting to end at that $4.1 million number, which is a difference from how we ended last year. But again, we've had some unforeseen expenditures to take place, and that's what the fund balance is there for. But other than that, everything looks good. Everything is reconciled. The bank statements are reconciled. So if you have any questions for me from the May financials, I'm here to answer.
All right. Any questions or other discussion? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries to accept the financials. 7.2. 7.3, approval of budget amendments for May 1st through 31st, 2020. Can we get a motion?
I make the motion to accept.
Motion by Dr. Jefferson,
Second.
second by Ms. Waltman. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries to approve the budget amendments for May 1st through 31st. 7.4, authorization to reimburse Footman School District bus drivers for CDL attainment and or renewal for 2020-21 school year.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Skidmore. Second by Ms. Waldman, that we authorize reimbursement for the CDL. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 7.5, authorization to dispose of 2012 through 2013 and prior years' financial records.
Make a motion.
Motion by Dr. Jefferson, second by Mr. Price. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 7.6, authorization to pay debt and land lease for 2020 through 2021. May I have a motion, please?
Make the motion.
Motion by Dr. Jefferson,
Second.
second by Ms. Waltman. Motion carries to pay debt and land lease.
Same old.
All in favor?
Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor?
That's what we.
Any opposed? I'm sorry, I get along easily. Okay, item 7.7, recommendation for property and casualty insurance coverage for 2020, 2021. May I get a motion?
What, okay,
Hold on.
look at this, I'm looking at this.
You can discuss if you want after the,
Okay,
after the motion. Gotta get a motion.
I make the motion.
Motion by Dr. Jefferson,
Second.
second by Mr. Skidmore.
This
Now,
is the,
Any
this,
discussion?
this is what we voted on last time that we bringing back. Is that correct?
Uh-huh.
Just sort of go with the cheaper, the one that the Terrell Insurance, our agent recommend.
So did we rescind the first,
It's in
It's in the
the,
letter.
in
It's in
the
the
letter.
request.
It's in the.
so this is asking us to rescind
To
it.
rescind it
Rescind and then approve.
and approve the recommendation of our agent.
So there'd be two actions that you'd be taking.
Okay. Is there any more discussion or any questions?
well, I say that we just go ahead and stay with our first decision and stay with Travelers.
And I have lots of reasons to say with Travelers.
Anybody else?
So if this is a vote to rescind it, my vote's no.
No,
Oh, okay.
is that how we do it, or,
Yes, sir.
okay,
Okay, the first thing we're voting on, well, if we don't rescind it, we will stay with the travelers, right?
right. Mhm.
Okay. Before we vote, anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, if not, there's been a motion to stay, Or did you motion?
No.
Do the motion to
We
rescind.
have a motion to rescind.
Oh, a motion
Okay.
to rescind the original
Okay.
plan. Is that what you did, Mr. Skidmore?
Well, I wasn't I was ready to get to the discussion part of it, so I didn't make the motion.
Okay,
But then my vote will be no.
So now we need is a vote, and then if
Yeah,
to rescind or not?
yeah.
you rescind and accept. If there's no, if there's doesn't vote, then the motion falls, and we'll stick with what was recommended the first time.
Okay. So, Mr. Skidmore, you made the motion to not,
No, I made the vote no.
that's this,
Yeah. We had a motion and a second. We had a discussion. Now we need a vote.
All right, so we're gonna vote to
This
rescind
right
or
here.
not?
Yes.
okay, all in favor of of rescinding the original, or the vote that we had last meeting? All in favor of rescinding that? All in favor? Any opposed? I heard Mr.
So we're
Skidmore.
all opposed. I'm opposed, you're opposed. Is that right?
What did you say, Mr. Jefferson? I didn't hear
I made the motion.
you. We're doing the vote now.
We're
What did
voting
you
to
vote?
rescind or not?
You voting to rescind or not?
Rescind.
Okay.
To rescind, so Mr. Price.
Rescind.
Right, so we got, motion to rescind,
We have two votes.
2 votes to rescind, 2 to not.
So now the president.
The
has to
president
vote.
has to vote.
Well, I think I shared my, we done did the discussion.
Yes,
But,
ma'am. So
okay, my concern earlier with Dr. Holloway. And I really don't.
Well, we were past discussion, right?
you can pass discussion.
Okay, I'm sorry, give me
You
just.
got to
Well,
vote
Because there was a big problem with one of those. But we missed the discussion. I missed the discussion.
Okay.
Does anybody have a copy of all that? I didn't bring mine.
Can we table it for a few minutes?
Well, there's a vote in progress. You
Okay, okay.
can. And we have
Yeah,
This has
our
to be
current,
done
yeah, it's
because
gotta be done, now our
it's
current
gotta be
coverage
done.
ends tomorrow.
tomorrow, yes.
But since we voted to go with Travelers,
But you have a motion and a second and a
But-
vote.
but I'm saying we voted at that other meeting to go with Travelers and it keeps coming back, but we don't bring it back. So, I mean, I understand.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna vote to just, go with the one we voted for last meeting for a couple of reasons, but
Okay.
I think for point of clarification, I understand. that.
Yes, so she voted no and the motion does not carry. So now we're on to the next one. That's it.
But the minutes need to reflect,
The minutes will reflect that the motion did not carry. And then we'll go on to the next one.
yes, sir, but the minutes need to reflect the reason for not going with the lowest bid.
I agree. For audit.
Okay, so now I can say
Are we back
my,
in discussion because that was,
that would be discussion, right? My reason?
However, Dr. Holloway and Mr. Compton say the minutes need to
So
reflect it, but for
whatever-
audit purposes,
Those who voted nay,
right.
we need.
We need
some
justification
Okay.
of why we're not going with the lowest.
Well, if I had those papers, I could show you.
oh,
Obviously, the School Board Association was higher than Travelers. And so then we have to say, but it was okay for us to go with them when they were higher. All right, but with Liberty Mutual, if you looked at the paperwork that we received with that, the page where it gives the $249,000 total, there are no itemized. Look on that page. It just says $249,000
You talking about on this recommendation?
on one of
page?
those pages, on one of those pages that they
I
gave
I
us.
submitted the whole
oh,
quote.
you're talking about from the last meeting.
Yeah, the
No,
first,
You don't
I
have it.
submitted the whole quote.
All right,
This is the
right.
Mutual stat.
All right, so when you flip through that, there's a page and it has just some lines and then it says $249,000 and you keep flipping back through there. It's itemized and it totals like almost $16,000 less. So where's that $16,000?
I don't know what page you're
If you-
referring to. Do you-
Can I look at it?
Mhm,
I
sure.
would have brought it if I had known, had to go through all this.
So this is to.
But our
clarify the
agent
This is
has-
why, this is my reason.
The
Okay.
agent has, he went through and counted everything up and itemized it, which I submitted in this month, comparing what the deductibles were, and what the limits were, and what the premiums were.
Okay, this page, premium summary. Commercial auto, no premium. General liability, no premium. But you have a total of 249,000.
That's from the previous page, is it not?
There's nothing,
Previous page lists everything out.
there is one page that lists everything out.
Mhm. And then each type of coverage has its own section with the corresponding premium that went with it
Right, and that's what my question is, where is all that? Because,
in there. I mean, and those quotes are difficult for me to look at as well, but when I went through it with the agent, I followed through and he even came back to the premium amount. So if it was a question in how to get to the
Yeah, that's-
249, we could clarify
Well,
that.
I tried to,
I didn't get a
no,
question.
no.
We even asked Mr.
Well,
Well, once she's.
I just think for the record,
I mean,
because
that's,
when we presented MSBA, we did give justification as to
What was
why we
it?
were going.
right, but the 50,000, that's kind of a state thing, because I know that came
That
up.
wasn't the justification.
What
for
was the
MAEP.
justification?
For MAEP, it was that the pre-assessments, reassessing all the value of all the equipment of the district and the additional services that they were going to provide us with. And on top of the possibility of being rebated if we stay in the pool, just like we do with the workers' comp. So
Well,
those are the justifications
right.
that we provided for MSBA.
Right,
But
Okay.
travelers is just $2,477 less than the MSBA proposal. So, I mean, if we're talking about, because I think when we were discussing, when you all were discussing, the cost was the biggest thing, but you're choosing the one that's only $2,400 less than what we recommended.
well, in the meeting, it was brought out that travelers raised somebody's,
They're giving us now a $50,000,
Right.
they're making us pay a $50,000 deductible for
Right.
wind and hail.
right, but that's not tornado, and that, it was brought out.
It's the
Yes,
same
it
thing.
is.
Well,
Tornado is
Okay.
wind damage.
all right,
That's what when we had Mr. Davis on the last time,
but
that's what he was
I
trying to explain.
know, and I had used see that page, I can't find it in yours, where it has a list and it totals. That's what I'm trying to find, but it gave a list of premiums and it totaled a lot less. But that 50,000 is kind of standard.
But it was 10 this
It
year.
was 10 this year.
And then travelers
We
is 10.
travelers, yeah.
I mean, travelers was 10 this year, and with Liberty, it's gonna be 10 for next year. So if we have tornado damage or any kind of wind and hail, we're gonna have to pay a $50,000 deductible by staying with travelers. That's kind of what's thrown me for a loop,
Well-
why we would stay with travelers.
The justifications you gave for School Board Association, they were not documented. It was just, I guess you all discussed it. So again, what we originally got was the 3 quotes and you recommended School Board Association.
Mhm.
So there was not really any justification documented. I mean, you all explained your reasoning for
Mhm.
recommending that.
Well, and
So-
Travelers is a lot older company than the School Board
So we're
Association.
not recommending MSBA today. We're
Right.
recommending
Or-
Liberty Mutual.
Well, but I wasn't there, their wind and all that wasn't 50,000
No, it's
also?
only 10,000.
Okay.
You done? You got any more?
Mhm. I mean, that page that I had in mine's not in there.
Thank you.
I'll find it.
They have to, they have to honor what the quote was. Even if
Yeah.
It wasn't right in there. Their quote was $249,000.
But on another page,
But it's,
it had it itemized and it was 230 something
so
thousand.
what, so what?
So I'll find that and show.
What reason are we giving for not taking the lowest?
Mine is that Travelers is a better respected company. I mean, have we had any problems with them?
I haven't been.
And our premium is actually like $22,000 less this year with Travelers than it was last year, right?
For the upcoming year versus this year.
Right,
Yes,
so
it is-
did-
It is a decrease.
So,
And that's normally what they do to offset raising the deductible. But
Yeah, it's a decrease
Liberty
because
Mutual was even
we
more.
haven't had a lot of claims. And in talking with Mr. Davis, he said that we're kind of.
what kind of claims did we have?
We didn't have any this year.
Oh, okay.
We didn't have any this year. So it is the good claim history that we have as to why we're getting a decrease from it.
Okay. That's already been voted on, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
all right. Next item is 7.8, adoption of annual pay orders for 2020-2021 school year. Those are some routine payments. Can we get a motion?
I make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Skidmore, second by Dr. Jefferson, that we adopt the annual pay orders for 2020 to 2021. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 7.9, authorization to issue monthly open purchase orders for 2020-2021 school year.
Make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Price,
Second.
second by Mr. Skidmore. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 8, personnel, 8.1, approval of elections/resignations of certified and/or classified staff. Everybody had a chance to look at the updates on those? There were a couple. Okay, can I get a motion?
I make a motion to accept the recommendation.
Motion by Dr. Jefferson,
Second.
second by Mr. Price, that we accept the approval of elections and resignations. All in favor? Any opposed? Item 8.2, approval of at-will statement of employment agreement for non-exempt daily paid staff.
I make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Skidmore, second by Mr. Price. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 9, old business, 9.1, final approval of elementary and secondary student handbook, district staff handbook, transportation staff handbook for 2020 through 2021 school year, with revisions made after first reading on June 8th, highlighted in blue.
Did we get the,
And then, yeah, somebody makes the motion.
okay, did we get the belts added?
Yes, sir, it's in there, yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir. The belts in there and the headbands is in
So we need to add this.
I make a motion.
Hold just a second.
you gotta read all that.
Just hold on.
No, don't we have to make the motion first and do that in discussion?
No, you have to make the motion with the change to the exemption.
Then with-
That's all you have to say,
Okay.
I make a motion with the change,
to the exemption policy.
exemption policy.
Okay.
Second the motion.
Motion by Mr. Skidmore, second by Mr. Dr. Jefferson.
That's good.
Discussion,
Now we can put this up.
Lewis. Now, the discussion is that, what it would be for the exemption, there was my concern about everybody not being exempt. So we, Dr. Holloway and Ms. Cheryl come up with a
Yes,
plan.
a good plan, a great plan.
So Ms. Kwame, when you read that, so we can add that to the,
Okay, it's the students in subject area tested classes can be exempt from the final exam in the course if they meet all exemption requirements and score the equivalent score of proficiency or meet growth on the comprehensive benchmark exam. And that way, they're eligible to be exempt. And they
Motivate
can,
them to do better.
right, it should inspire them to do well on their state test, but also on this benchmark test, because, they can kind of see that, being out of school that last
I
little bit.
never was exempt.
you ain't gotta worry about it.
But no, but that should all, in turn, that should help the subject area test score. So it should all
Yes.
hopefully
Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Too late, Mr. Skidmore, for you.
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, let's see, new business, item 10.1, authorization to advertise hunting and fishing leases, section 15, township 1 north, range 16 east.
Make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Price,
Second.
second by, was it Mr. Skidmore? All in
I
favor?
got.
Oh, I'm sorry. Discussion.
And I don't know, I've had some people that, and this may not relate to this right here. I've had some people that have some hunting leases that's coming due this year. Is this relating to
This is
them?
one that was left out of last month,
And we have-
approval to advertise.
Okay.
We had about 16 of them
Yeah.
last
Okay.
month, and, this one was left off.
Okay, now, the new firm is sending those letters
Yes,
out?
yes.
Okay, now how? Some of these guys, this is new to them, so they don't know, who do they send that, bid to?
The bid comes to me, and that's.
Okay, the bid still comes to you,
Yes.
but they don't come here and meet like they used to, is that correct?
They will when they open.
Open it, yes.
No, and not if we're still social
Yeah, now we see-
distancing.
so- that's right,
Okay,
that's
so
right.
yeah, so that, and that's their question.
Yeah, so what we plan to do with Matthew's direction, we plan to have a document camera to show the bids. We are going to open all of the bids at the next month's board meeting.
Okay.
We'll show the bids, tally them up, and then award, and give those current leaseholders a right to match, a time
Okay,
to match.
they wanted to make it, that was the question, if they,
Yes,
okay, that,
Yes, they get a chance to match. They don't have to physically be here, but we'll stream everything.
Michael,
If he said if I needed him here, which I probably will.
Yeah.
Because I think we're gonna, I mean, we've been getting so many calls and so many emails, I think we're gonna have quite a bit to go.
oh,
through.
yeah. Okay.
It'd be
So,
good for them to meet Mike as well.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, I will ask him to come.
Who is Mike?
He helps with all of the 16 section stuff.
So the current lease owner doesn't just have the opportunity to just renew, they have to bid.
They have to
They have to
bid,
bid.
but they have the right to match the
Yes,
highest bid.
okay.
bidder. Yes,
Okay,
yes,
Thank you.
yes. Sure.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 10.2, approval of distance learning plan.
If I can explain that before we motion and say.
Oh, please.
This is, this is in case we have to close down school again, or for any kid that has to be quarantined. These are the guidelines that we will follow, and it involves grading. That's why, which is a policy. That's why we're bringing it to the board. It's not like our return to school plans. Those are just procedures. This is, Mr. McCormick had fun reading today. This is in case that there's a possibility we may have to shut a whole school down. And if they do, these are the guidelines that they'll have to follow. Again, it impacts grading and attendance.
And I had a question, and I should have reread it, about the taking a bus out somewhere for internet.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so,
So
Give me the
with
long
the
and short of
CARES
that.
money, we're
Mhm.
going to buy, and I forget what it's called, but Ricky will take one of his buses and they'll hook all this equipment to it. And him and Dr. Dace found 12 spots in the county that we'll take a bus to and park the bus. Kids with our devices can pull up and get on the internet, and only our devices will connect to the internet. Matt, if I'm speaking correctly.
all right,
It's hot spots, like a
Yes,
hot
sir, like a hot
spot.
spot.
Okay.
but for the children that can't drive up and, you know what I'm saying? You know,
I don't know what else we can do.
see, that's the problem now.
We will have some little Wi-Fi spots that they can take home if they can. But most of the time, those kids that live that far out, those Wi-Fi spots.
Yeah, they're
are
not gonna work anyway.
So there's no, the governor just, the
I
governor
know.
legislature passed, they're gonna expand broadband internet. But right now,
Well,
that's the best we can do.
I would presume we're not the only
Oh, no.
county that has a problem with
No, no,
internet,
no,
so-
no. Everybody that I've talked to and that's rural, like East Jasper, West Jasper,
Mm-hmm.
some other places,
Yeah.
they're doing, that's what they're doing is these buses, because that's the best we can do do right now. And then the Wi-Fi spots, which, John and Dr. Bass are looking for the provider who covers the most of Clark County. So that's the internet provider that we will go with based off of coverage, so we can get out as far as we can.
But this is a if.
This is
If we don't
in
come-
case, this is in
It's gonna be
case.
both.
Okay.
No, we're gonna buy the stuff for the
It'll
bus.
still
That's
happen.
done. Yeah, yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Yeah, yes, ma'am.
One of, I'm going, on another board that I'm on, one of the things that was explained to us here, we was looking at getting some meters that were self-reading meters. And things like that. And Mississippi Power and these other power companies that have these meter bases at their home, at people's homes, and they can turn it off at the station. They can shed some light on how they're doing that to help with getting internet out to these, rural areas. That is, I do know that Mississippi Power is working on something of that nature because it was presented to us. To what extent, I don't know at this time.
I've heard the same thing from Fort County up in October and Lowndes and all that. They're doing the same thing. So hopefully they may get some of this money to help do that, but I do know they're working on that very thing.
All right. So we need to vote now.
And motion.
Oh, we need a motion. Oh, I'm sorry, that's right.
Yeah, so they would know.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Skidmore, second by Dr. Jefferson, that we accept the distance learning plan. All in favor? Any opposed? Item 10.3, approval of special education idea Part B and preschool budget for FY 2021. Can I get a motion?
Make the motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Skidmore, second by Ms. Waltman. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, at this time, item 11, no, well, you didn't have anything today.
No, I know.
Okay, I'm sorry, I overlooked you, but I didn't.
But I did send you all a lot of information,
Yeah.
so if you have any questions about it, just let me know. I know I bombarded you today.
Okay.
But any questions, just let me know.
Okay. Determine the need for executive session. Let me get a motion for
I
that.
make a motion, we go into closed session to determine the need for executive session.
Motion by Ms. Waltman,
Second.
second by Mr. Jefferson, Dr. Jefferson, that we go in closed session to determine the need for executive session. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we need are we going to?
Yeah, we